Let's talk all about AI in business. It's hosted by Brent Muller. Welcome to the Future Proof Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of Future Proof, the podcast where we're decoding how founders, leaders, and execs are transforming business and the impact of AI on business growth. For those just joining in for the first time, I'm Brent Muller, the host from Deploy AI. At Deploy, we specialize in providing autonomous growth engines that power B2B and SaaS companies to accelerate and scale growth much, much faster. So if you're just looking to grow or scale or just have questions about AI, there's links in the show notes have a quick 15-minute call with us. Love to talk to you. But let's get to today's episode. I'm really excited to have Dorna Moini from Gavel.io. Dorna, thank you for joining us, and I can't wait to dive in to hear some insights into the legal industry.
Yes, I'm super excited to join you.
So Dorna, really quick, go through your background of starting out with your practice and kind of talk to us leading up to your thoughts and reasons to starting.
Yes, so I am a lawyer by training and by practice. I practiced for almost a decade at two big law firms, last at Sidley Austin. And where Gavel actually came out of was a problem that I had in my own practice. I never planned on becoming a tech founder. I actually wanted to solve a very specific problem that I had with my pro bono clients. So
Right.
I was a litigator and I did mostly corporate litigation, a lot of trade secret litigation. But I was also doing pro bono work specifically with domestic violence survivors. And I was finding that I wasn't able to spend as much time as I wanted to on those cases because I was so bogged down in the early phases of the case, which are complex and complicated, but are fairly rules-based. Like you can describe what you're doing in a set of rules to someone else. And so what I wanted to do was build automation around that. I wanted to have rules-based logic that helped connect answers that my clients gave me about their facts to documents that I could actually pretty automatically generate for them. So I'm not an engineer. I got together with a friend of mine who was an engineer, and I said, will you help me build this automation platform very specifically for domestic violence law, specifically for California? And there are 58 counties in California, and every one of them has their own rules. So actually only worked in half the counties. So we built that tool. And then what happened was we started hearing from other attorneys in other areas of law, other jurisdictions, that they wanted to build a similar type of platform, an automated system that they could put in front of their clients, but for their own areas. And so we, at the very beginning, dabbled a little bit in becoming a software provider, essentially like a services provider, and building systems out for some of our law firm clients. And then after we did this a few times, realized that same process could also be automated. So we built Gavel, which is a automation suite. And we don't specialize in any particular area of law. So no matter what area of law you are in, you can build that out and build automation into Gavel. And so now Gavel is a combination of rules-based logic, which is if this, then that type logic,
Right.
plus generative AI for the parts where we think that generative AI really excels, which is mostly revising, coming up with novel clauses, and redlining and negotiating.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So now you're using rules-based and then feeding it into generative AI, which is really cool. So talk to us about how you think Gavel evolves from here and because you know that AI is just going to keep iterating and keep getting better. So how does Gavel take advantage of that and help all of your lawyers and clients going forward?
Yes. So one of the things that we are very clear about who our ICP is, and we have a lot of large firms on our platform using Gavel, but our core customer is the small and mid-sized firms. And those firms have traditionally been underserved in easy to use tools that give them the same level of power and complexity that some of the larger firms have access to. And so that's really where we prioritize, both in our rules-based part of our platform, which is called Gavel Workflows, and in our generative AI part of our platform, which is called Gavel Exec, which is sort of like an AI assistant. And we really thrive on that customization. So we already have a very domain-specific platform specifically for legal, especially particularly on the generative AI side, we have given it information about transactional matters, and we've worked with attorneys to build it. But we also allow the lawyer to build in their own customization, and we make that really easy, so they don't need to hire a whole IT staff. But small firms can really have that power at the scale that larger firms do.
And so you allow any discipline of law to kind of work through their workflow and build it through Gavel.
Yes. So the caveat there is obviously some areas of law are not as amenable to automation in this way, like rules-based logic. So we're not really a litigation tool, for example. Like litigation is typically going out, doing research and putting it into documents. We've seen people sort of do that with our AI assistant, but that's not what it's specifically meant for. It's meant for anything that's rules-based. If you have templates, you can use our rules-based logic engine. And then if anything that you are negotiating or redlining or just analyzing documents for, which is what our AI assistant inside of Word is for.
Really cool. So what have you seen and what's been the feedback from your clients about what this does to them?
Yes. So obviously one of the things that everyone finds with any tool that gives you some efficiency is time savings. But I think what's most powerful about the customers who we have on Gavel is that if they want to, they can transform their entire business model. So you can say, okay, efficiency is coming to the legal space, and so now I have to bring down my hourly rate. That's one way to approach it. But the way that the winners are approaching it is by thinking, how does this impact my business model? And how can I actually make this an accelerant for my practice? So those firms are coming up with fixed fees, alternative types of fees, structures where they're actually involving their clients, the law firm's clients, inside of the technology to interact with them better. And that's where they're scaling. They're able to serve more customers. Potentially, each one of those customers might be paying slightly less, but them as a firm, they're more profitable and they're not capped by the number of hours they can work in a week. They're really just capped by how much they can scale out with technology.
Well, you're leading right into my next question, which is how is this going to change the legal industry in general? And that you've already given us one. Do you see any other ways in which the legal industry is changing?
Yeah. So one is obviously pricing models and the level of scale. And I think the other place where that scale matters a lot is within the mid-size firm market. Within the middle class market. So we have in the US, I think it's like 77% of people access legal services through a non-lawyer. So they're doing it on their own. They're finding online resources. They're using online platforms like the LegalZooms and the Rocket Lawyers of the world. And it's not because those customers, those clients are not wanting to interface with a lawyer. It's because the affordability and the accessibility is not there. Right. And so one thing that automation generally, and when I say automation, I really mean like the broad sense of the term that includes rules-based and generative AI. What automation can bring you is the ability to tap into those clients and serve a very different part of the market that has an ability to pay, but just needs to be served in a different way. So I think there's a lot of fear mongering about lawyers and robots coming to take away lawyers. And I think there are definitely tasks that lawyers are not going to do anymore. Right. But I also think there's so much market share that is out there to grab if you're willing to make these small shifts inside of your practice to adapt to the customer and the zeitgeist of what they want.
Interesting. Yeah, I would think that there's a lot of industries that are being shaken up by the impact of AI and automation, right? And the legal industry for sure. I've seen some really good podcasts about the business models and the pricing models changing. But you're right. I didn't think about on the flip side about being a lawyer or a small law firm of 3 to 5 lawyers being able to serve X amount of more clients rather than what they can from their single hourly rate.
Yeah, we've seen some really interesting. So particularly on the rules-based part of our platform, we allow people to white label that automation. And so we have seen law firms who are generating 6-7 figures of revenue just based on a tool that they've made that is sort of like a TurboTax-like platform, right? But is for their area of law, oftentimes very niche. Like we have someone in Texas doing horse law in Texas, like that's it. But they actually can generate a lot of revenue because they're so targeted and they know their customer. a lot of those customers might have been coming to them before, not really able to afford their traditional services, but they can afford this software, like tech plus attorney model that they're
Wow. So they're
providing.
opening up new revenue streams. That's exciting.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Super exciting.
Yeah. That must make you feel really proud, of the platform and what you can do, how you're helping, because that's a win for the customer or the client and a win for the law firm, which is your client.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's really, really exciting because a lot of the customers that we have on our platform are essentially legal tech entrepreneurs of their own. And so
Yeah.
it's really, really fun to see them, get on a demo with us. They've done nothing. They're really excited about this vision. And then like 6 months in, they have an entirely new business stream. Some of them are like, we're leaving the strict practice of law. Like we're not running our traditional law firm anymore.
Right.
We're moving entirely to this model. So it's really just exciting to see their stories come
Yeah.
to life.
Probably opens up some of their time too in a big way. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Imagine a lawyer being able to have a life.
The lawyer on the beach lifestyle.
Yes, I love it. I love it. So as you look down the next 12 to 18 months into, I know we're changing so fast. How do you see the next iteration? Not that we can predict, but some of the things coming with AI and data and automation, and some of the things that, I don't know if you've dug into MCP, where that is really going to make systems talk to each other much, much easier than ever before. And I think that opens up, especially for something like Gavel, would open up more opportunities. But how do you see these kind of innovations and changes shaping or changing the legal industry?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think one of the things that we're seeing is a little bit more of like the platformization of legal, and particularly on the supplier side. Like even on our end, we've done that. We had our rules-based platform, and then our customers said, we want to do more on Gavel. Like we want end to end. So we introduced Gavel Exec, which is our AI assistant, which happens after you've generated that first draft of the document. And so not only are single providers providing more of a suite, but they're also they're also realizing, like 10 years ago, every software company was sort of a siloed software company, and they as a protective measure, they actually weren't integrating with others. Whereas now what we're seeing is, if you want to play in the market and if you want users, you need to play nicely with everyone. So for us, like we have an open API, we have a Zapier integration, we have a make.com integration, we have a lot of different ways for people to, whether they want to use our whole platform or whether they just want to use pieces of our platform, they can connect that into their other systems, and we make it really easy. And I think that's really important as you're seeing all these other innovations, because you can also pull data from these other systems to make the generative AI work better for the firm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's going to be really exciting. And as we start to get into agentic AI, it's going to unlock things that people never thought possible. But what you just kind of gave me this idea is you're turning the industry with, and again, I don't know if this was your thought process or this is just a result of how you built Gavel, but you're turning traditional industry into their own tech enabled by white labeling what Gavel can do. And I think you're going to see that across industries.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, the legal is actually late in terms of adopting really everything.
Right.
Like I don't have actually the stats off the top of my head, but the last deck we did for our investors, I remember we put down like HR, marketing, even healthcare. There's so much of it that was just online. I'm not even talking about AI, but just like online, and legal was under 50%. This is like probably 2 years ago. And that it's just insane to see the adoption that has been accelerated, partially as a result of some fear. Like not every single lawyer is adopting AI in their workspace every single day, but the fact that they see others are leads them to realize they should use some technology. So
Right.
it's just more widespread discussion leads to everyone dipping their toes in a little bit faster. We've had really two big transformations in the world in the past like 5 years, one being the pandemic. Lawyers had to leave their offices, come into their homes and like figure out how they run their systems. And then the second being AI, which have really transformed a pretty static industry into something new.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I think it's going to, if you think about it, there's always a portion of every industry that is entrepreneurial in nature, but they can't always act on it because they didn't have the easy ability to do what your platform allows them to do in legal, right? And AI kind of is unlocking that for all kinds of people in other industries. So I think this is really exciting.
Very true. Yeah, very true. So many off the shelf tools that you can use.
Yeah. All right. So let me ask you this question. So we asked about the impact of AI, and I told you I was going to ask you this. What this question is: if you started Gavel over today, what would you do differently, if anything?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've been thinking about it a lot because I think, obviously there's technology that has transformed since we started. Like
Right.
the generative AI and the tool set that you can adopt has just transformed. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I would have started doing AI like 3 or 4 years ago, because I think a lot of the companies that did that, to be honest, like spent a lot of resources doing things that later on these large models came out
Can
and
just
like,
do, right?
and now they're just adopting those models. So they spent a lot of resources to get there. But I think for us, it would be just narrowing in on our ICP faster. I think
Yeah.
it's always really hard, especially when you're talking about like new companies, new founders. It's always really hard to say, I'm going to give up certain customers who could potentially want my product. But
It's the
that
hardest thing to do as an
hard. So
owner.
you're like, wait a minute, I went fishing and I caught like 100 fish, and you're gonna make me throw 90 of them back in the water? Like, no, but those 10 fish are gonna be exponentially better, and you're gonna actually be able to go all the way with them. That's the first thing that I would do. Like when we first started, we were not just targeting the legal industry. We said we're automation for everyone. And as time went by, we got narrower and narrower and narrower. And while we still do get those other customers who come to us because our platform can do like maybe 90% of what they want, we know that for our core customer, we can do 100% and more of what they want and desire and don't even know that they desired.
Amazing. I love it. All right. Before we get into the last, I got one more question for you. So everybody wants to grow and scale, right? Gavel, you're growing. If you probably have targets that you guys have set out for the next 12 months, right? If I gave you a magic wand and you could solve one thing to meet or exceed those goals over the next 12 months, what would you use that magic wand to do to help? Is it, if it's a big obstacle or a growth lever, what would you use it for?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's really, in today's world, so much of it is about just awareness, like getting in front of just having every person having heard your name even just that once, because it is such a, like, just AI in general, it's such a, legal AI is such a competitive space. Every day I feel like I see a new company popping up claiming to do something more magical, and that is really exhausting for the law firms and the people who are deciding on what to use or not to use, because like 10, 20 companies are telling them they can do this thing, and they have to now go test all those things to figure out who's the best.
Who's telling the truth, right?
So,
yeah.
Exactly. And so the ones that are winning are the ones who have just put their brand in front of people as much as possible and are like just spending money to be there.
Right. So reach in front of your ICP. Yeah.
Yeah. And just a magic wand to say, like, just have Gavel, have everyone have heard of Gavel at least once, because then the sell becomes so much easier once they have some seed planted in their brains and are willing to just try it out. One of the things we do that a lot of other platforms don't do is we have a free trial, no credit card needed, no demo required. You just, without anything, you can go and test it out for yourself. And I'm actually about to make some videos on like some comparisons between us and other tools, because the proof really is in the pudding. If you see the results, you will say, this is the platform I want to use because it's giving me the things that I'm going to accept. It's giving me what I actually want to put into my work product. But
I absolutely love that.
You need to have the 10 minutes to decide to spend to try that out.
I love it. This is fantastic. So we're going to put all the links to the show notes, and how to get in touch with you and your team at Gavel. But for everybody that's watching this beforehand, just tell everybody how to get in touch with you guys and get that demo. Again, try it.
Yes, absolutely. So our generative AI product, Gavel Exec, is available at gavel.io/exec. You can always reach out to me or our team at help@gavel.io. And then I also have a social media channel where I talk about how lawyers are using technology, and I sort of deep dive into things that are happening in the industry. So if anyone wants to follow there, it's across all channels. It is Dorna, Dorna, Gavel.
Dorna, you honestly, you've even sparked a few ideas that I wasn't thinking about, which is fantastic. This is why I love the podcast. It's why I love talking to great leaders like yourself. I love what you're doing in the legal industry. We are definitely going to check back with you in a few months and have you back on and just see how things are going at Gavel. So thank you for just sharing your insights, sharing your journey, and talking to us about Gavel.
Yes, thank you so much. I think one of the best ways for founders to grow is really just to hear about stories that other founders have had. So just a really great podcast that you have that's bringing that knowledge and collective experience into the public.
Yeah, well, we're excited that you were part of it and part of the growing future-proofed family, and we're just ecstatic. So thank you again, and guys, that wraps up this episode of Future Proof, and we will see you on the next episode. Thanks, Dorna.
Thank you.
If you're ready to embrace change and lead with innovation, be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Future Proof Podcast.